today's video, guys, I'm going to show you my process for painting textured walls and doing an accent wall. It's one of the most popular questions I got about my painting videos is, well, what if I got texture? How do I do an accent wall? We're going to show you all the tips and tricks in this video today. First of all, this is part of a grand project, right? I'm redoing a whole mobile home. And this wall used to be made out of the old vinyl, right? Just a vinyl drywall. So we patched it and repaired it, and we applied the texture in the recent video. If you haven't seen that and you want to learn, we'll put the link in the video description. Okay, I'm just missed one of my plugs, and this is my cheat. I'm using Kills. Okay, you can wipe down your old plugs and spray them with Kills and turn them white so they look new. That's how you go from 1985 to 2023. All right, here we go. Next thing I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna recommend this regardless of the condition of your walls. People ask me, what if I got textured walls? Do you sand? Yep, get yourself a 9-inch orbital sander like this, all right? And we're not scrubbing the wall. We're simply removing any debris or bumps or lint that was there previously, okay? So what I'm doing here is I'm setting this on the wall and just like a light gravity scenario. Remember, this drywall hasn't been primed yet, so it's really soft and sands easily. And because of the vinyl, the nature of it, it didn't spray on and knock down as well as I wanted it to. So I'm just gonna take some ridges off, give that a much softer look. There, I like that, all right? Whenever you're painting, you always sand in between coats because there's always lint fibers that get stuck on the wall, and you're gonna see them somewhere down the road. So make sure you got one of these. Always paint, sand, paint, sand. Here's an important rule, okay? Whenever you're working with new drywall compound, it needs to be primed. It needs to be primed because it needs to be sealed. And for that, we use a PVA drywall primer paint. Don't use any of the other paints in the store that say they're primers, because we're priming new drywall, and that's specific technology in a specific can. If you get the wrong primer, you're gonna have major problems with your work. For all the grief that I give the Home Depot and the Behr people, this is the best paint that Behr makes. I love this stuff. And it's in an orange can, so it's really easy to find when you go to the store. And it says drywall primer and sealer, okay? Very important you use this right product here. Okay, guys, if you don't have the right tools for opening a can, you can always use a knife. That's not a problem. And if you're wondering, yes, we're gonna have a link of all of our tools in the video description, okay? So you can go and get all of those. I love to use these jumbo trays, and unfortunately, not everything that the Home Depot sells is in every Home Depot store all the time. So sometimes you gotta order online, and sometimes you just gotta go to a regular paint store to get your gear. I love to go shop on Amazon because I always get it the next day. When you prime, you put them in the paint and you roll it back to get it on the cover. If you try rolling forward, the weight on the paint is gonna spin the roller back down every time. All right, so grab it and then walk it up. There we go. And now you got some paint in there. You'll work it into the roller. Run it 15 or 20 times, okay? You really want to condition your nap roller here to be full of paint before you get started. All right, there we go. I know when you're painting, a lot of people, they do cut and roll, which is brush. When you're priming, you always start with the roller, and then you only have to brush what's left that never got touched. Okay? Makes life simple. Remember, this is brand new texture, so you don't want to be rubbing into the corners and removing it off of another surface. And after you get a few passes in, you'll find that the roller will hold a lot more paint, okay? And you gotta use some pressure here. Force that paint into the texture. If it's not sealed, it's gonna be really interesting when you go apply paint. You'll end up getting your wall color soaking up into that drywall because it's not sealed. And then you'll end up using a lot more paint product on your first coat than you want to. And you might end up in one of those situations where you gotta go back to the store and buy another can. Drywall primer is usually around $13, $15 a gallon. It's not expensive. And a good paint for an interior finish will run you usually between 40 and 100, depending on what kind of performance you're looking to get out of it. We'll talk about the paint that we're using in this video in a few minutes. So once you've got your roller working really well, you should be able to go floor to ceiling, 1 roller wide of paint. So what we do is we go up and down. We're always using a little bit of pressure. The pressure follows the cage, enters here, so it's stronger here and weak on this side. So once you've pushed your paint into the wall, you can back up, I'll exaggerate it, okay? And then light pressure, roll over the surface again. This will get rid of any drips that are sitting on that wall. Really hard to see when you're dealing with texture. It's one of the reasons why you want to use a 3/4 inch nap, or if you're in Canada, we'll call it a 15 or 20 millimeter, okay? You want to have this thick enough that it holds enough paint to get the job done and push it into that texture. If you use a thin nap roller, you're not pushing anything into the texture. You're only going to paint the surface, and that won't seal. Remember, the thicker the texture, the thicker the roller. Now, if you're wondering what's my plan for fixing the windows, I'm going to removing the blinds, getting this old paneling out of the way, and then I'm going to use some 3/4 stock, some wood. We're going to frame up a window jamb and then put window casings on. We're not going back with the traditional mobile home plastic outside corners. We're making this house look like a traditional builder's home, not a mobile home. Whoever buys this place has no intention of leaving. It's a beautiful gated community with a golf course, beautiful clubhouse and facilities. And so this, when I sell this house, is going to be somebody's retirement home. And that's why I'm trying to make it as beautiful as possible. Now, because this is just primer, I'm not too concerned about my cut. This piece of molding here has only been primed, and I'm going to hit it with some semi-gloss, just so it looks more like a crown molding when I'm finished. Okay, so I'm fine with really pushing that paint into the corner and going all over the trim. All right. Remember, the rule for painting is to paint from inside the brush, even when you're doing primer. So have about 1 inch of paint in the can. If you have more than that, just tilt the can on the side and then push it in at the top, the thin part of the can, okay? Load that brush up. It'll carry a lot of paint in it, and it makes this a lot easier. Now you can set it on the wall and then push it into the surface. Collect all your drips. Now, because you're painting texture with a brush, you're going to have to come at it from a couple different directions, and you're going to want to have lots of paint on here. It is a lot easier to start with too much paint, and then when you get the paint out of the brush, you can go back over your work and just pick up all the extra drips. All right, remember, this is drywall, and if you use too much passing back and forth, you're actually going to melt and smooth out the texture. So try to do this as quick as possible with as little work as possible. All right, that's it for the priming. Now we're going to give this about 20 minutes to dry out, and then we're going to come back for the next step of the preparation because we're still not ready to paint yet. All right, now here's a great opportunity to be cheap. Because it's primer, and we always sand after our primer coat, it's okay if there's a little bit of dirt or fuzz or whatever. So set your cage on the edge of the can, all right? Take your 5-in-1 tool and simply clean out all the extra paint. Ooh, that's a really thick roller. And it might not seem like you're getting a lot done here, but the truth is, these rollers are about $9 each right now, if you're buying a good microfiber. And if I can get 6 or 7 ounces of paint out of here before I go to wash this, that's money in the bank. It makes the cleaning up process a lot faster, and it saves your paint. Now, same regard, the paint that's in the tray is still good. Here we go. Okay, simply use your brush, get all that extra paint out of your tray. Between the brush and brushing out the tray, it's almost a full quart. And that's just unnecessary to throw in the garbage. Now, if this is your wall paint, you can't do that, unfortunately, because your wall paint has to stay clean. You don't want to get any wall paint dirt back in the can because your final coat doesn't get sanded when you're done. There we go. Now we're good to go and wash that gear while this is drying. So the primer is done, it's dry, and it took a while. Remember, in behind this is vinyl drywall. So it was about an hour and a half, and I had fans on. Gotta love that. It's time to sand now, because when we paint, we paint, we sand, we paint, we sand. That's the way it works. This is a 9-inch abrasive disc I got from my Hyde sanding pole. And the idea here is set it on nice and gentle, okay? We're not looking to sand anything down. We're just looking to rub dirt off if it's on there. All right. Remember, that's just to get rid of that, right? There's just a few little dots on there that were raised edges that we want to get rid of and make sure everything's continuously perfect. That's it, all right? But it's worth it, especially on flat walls, but even on textured walls. Now, a lot of you will know, if you're a fan of the channel, that I use this 25-year paintable latex caulking. It's got some stretchability in it, and it works out great. And it's not a runny, gooey mess, all right? It's got a bit of stiffness to it, which is nice to work with. But in this case, I'm using this. This is a 20-minute quick dry caulking, okay? This is 2 hours. And since I'm only doing an accent wall, I don't want to wait another 2 hours before I do my first coat of paint. So I'm going to show you my trick right now for how you do an accent wall and have a straight line from one textured wall to another textured wall. Because that is a common question that I get asked. So let me just show you the secret and the sauce is this. So you can see here, because we've got these raised dots of texture in and on and around, there's no way to draw a straight line. So what you have to do is you have to create one. And you just take your caulking, all right? And this is, I understand this isn't exactly like the inside corner of one wall to the next, but it demonstrates the situation. And you want to use your finger to press it in to create a smooth concave surface, okay? Now that you've got this smooth concave in the side of the corner, you can draw a straight line on that with your brush coming from both directions. All right, the only other thing you need to know, if you're going to be doing an accent wall with texture, always do the light color first and the dark color last. All right, so if your accent wall is dark, paint the whole room first and then do the accent. This is also an effective technique if you're painting and whoever sanded the walls over sanded in the corners and made a big groove. Have you ever seen that? Up at the ceilings especially, you can see that where the ceiling white and then the wall color, and there's this groove in there and it's a dark line because it's creating a shadow. Now, you can get rid of that just by using a little bit of quick dry caulking. And if in 20 minutes this is dry, that means you can go ahead, do some caulking, hit all of your corners, okay? You can pull out your color, your brush, and you start doing all the cutting in for the first coat around your doors, windows, plugs, switches, all that kind of stuff. By the time you're done that in the room, you can then get up on your ladder and you can hit that ceiling edge and it'll be ready to go and perfect every time. All right, guys, let's just go through this. My brig, if you're not familiar or you're new to the channel, I use the Worcester Sherlock system. This is a painting stick that has positive holes and tabs, locks in position. It doesn't unravel on you. It also locks onto your cage, okay? Bam. So when you're painting, your handle's not untwisting from that little screw that everybody else uses. So that's why I love this. The cage has also got great compression. It's on ball bearings and gives you really smooth action. Like I said, we're using texture, so another 3/4 nap roller. Boom. And then lock that in. Boom. Now I'm ready to go, okay? I like to use a 3-inch angle brush. This is my favorite brush. And because I'm down here in Florida, and I wanted to just do a quick little shout out about this situation. There's my accent color. Haha, it's gorgeous. We're going for a beachy look. This is a Sherwin-Williams Super Paint, available at the Sherwin-Williams store. And because I'm down here on a work visa, I set up a commercial account. And so basically that's name, phone number, address, and that's it, okay? I get to buy all my paint with a cash account and get special pricing on my favorite paints. So Sherwin-Williams has about 7 different lines, quality lines, and they have different performances, okay? And contrarily, a lot of you guys go to Home Depot and they have 4. Behr has 4 different wall paints. So their wall paints go from $34 to $65. And Sherwin-Williams is, well, this one's in the middle. This is the middle line, and it's a good quality paint, right? Like, I'm not running a daycare here. I don't need it bulletproof. It's just for my house and it's in a bedroom. This one was $38, just to give you an idea. So you think you're going shopping at Home Depot to get the cheapest paint in the market? You're probably correct, but it's not the best value. Because this is not comparable to the cheap gallon that you can get at Home Depot. This is comparable, much closer to the top line. All right, there we go. So that's what I do. I load my roller up. We're gonna cut and roll. I'm gonna cut first just because I'm looking forward to getting on the brush. I'm gonna put a little bit more paint in here, empty out my can. All right, and boom. Now that this is sealed, I don't have to be so concerned about melting the mud like when I was priming, right? So I'm gonna, again, same thing. I'm gonna push the paint into the brush. Just clean off the outside of it, okay? And I paint from inside. And here, I wanna be somewhat careful. Draw a straight line on that ceiling. There we go. Now, look at this. That's the texture up against that wood. Okay, you see? Very difficult to get a nice line in it. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is, before I do my second coat, I'm gonna come back with my caulking and I'm gonna run a very thin bead there to get a straight line, just like I did in my demonstration, so that I can move on to having a nice finish. There we go. But for now that I'm committed here, and this vinyl is gonna take about another hour and a half to dry, there's no way I'm gonna stop and wait for that to dry and put caulking on. So I'll get the first coat. One of the benefits of using a caulking is that it only requires one coat of paint to cover. Okay, so if you find you make mistakes after you're done your first coat, you can use caulking to fix it. Like, let's say you find this tiny little hole. You can grab your 5-in-1 tool, put a little caulking, and then flatten it out with your 5-in-1. And that's as good a repair as anything else. And that'll save your bacon in the middle of a paint job. All right, now, here we go. I'm making a hell of a mess up here. Yep, I definitely should have taken the time of caulking all the way around the edges first. Oh, you know, I'm a flat ceiling kind of guy, just not used to this. I should have put that in as part of my process. All right. Okay, and if you've got little white holes, don't be afraid to dab. Really, the goal here is to make sure that everything gets painted, not just the surface. I know, I managed to save this drywall, and I'm regretting it now. This is just drying so slow. Oh, if I ever am in a situation like this again, I'm pulling that old 1/4-inch drywall off, throwing it in the garbage, and I'm starting over with something real. This is just creating so much extra work. It's kind of like, you know, over in Europe, the paint cans, they tell you the recommended drying time on paint is 2 hours. It's because so much of the country over there is old material, and it's plaster and masonry and everything else. And those products do take about 2 hours to dry because it can only dry into the air in the room. Or down here, when you use drywall, man, your paint usually dries in about 20 or 30 minutes. But not today, not on vinyl. There we go. Now, I don't have to make this perfect in the corner because I am going to be adding trims, okay? But I want to paint this first and add the trim second. And it usually is a little bit out of order for me because I don't usually paint anything until the trims are there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-paint all my trims and then put it on with a siliconized caulk that comes pre-super white. That way I can do all the wall come back, do all my trims, all my windows, caulk the gap, and then use a wet rag right on the dry paint to get my finished edge. And that is going to look amazing. Okay. You know, here's something interesting. Some of you might be going, hey, what is this box down here? This is back in the day. We used to have landline telephones. I can still buy a cover plate for that, which is why I'm not taking it off. It is nice to have an old phone that doesn't require any power to operate, because Bell Telephone has its own low voltage cable. Bell Telephone, well, I guess depending where you live, eh? But telephones have low voltage cable. And the telephones, even when the power goes out, still work if you have an old phone that only works on that low voltage only. So, nice to have one in every house, just in case of emergency. And if you're watching this at home and you're like, hey, I like that color, check out the video description, guys. I'll have my wife, Michelle, put that information in there for you. She picked it, I just paint it. Makes my life simple, eh? When you paint, always cut around your plugs and switches, so you don't paint the plugs and switches. Always take the covers off too, my goodness. So here's my caulking line. I'm just going to demonstrate what it would be like to cut. You come up a little bit short, right? Get the extra paint out of your brush. And then you can draw a line on that caulking. Okay? And that's about as close as you're going to get. And that's okay, because that camera is right up nice and tight. Let's get the shot from a distance. There we go. That looks pretty darn good to me. There you go. Well, that's how you would paint two different colors, because now I got white and whatever this is. Oh, debonair. What a fancy word. Okay, here we go. Here we go. This is my rig. Here's my roller. And like I teach, start in the middle of the paint. Roll it towards you to get it onto the roller sleeve. Watch what happens when I lift it. The weight pushes it back down again. Now you can set it here and roll it forward into the paint. You don't have to fight with it. You don't have to sit here going crazy, all right? That's all it is. Start in the paint, roll it towards you, lift it up, let it sag, drop it, and push it back in. And then, now we're just forcing lots and lots and lots and lots of paint into that roller sleeve so that we can get on with our day here. All right? Alrighty. Now, good paint doesn't drip. You see that? That's good paint. That's how you can tell. The paint you're using is making a mess. You're not using a good paint. And we're using a little bit of force to help that 3/4 knot work its way into all those holes. Okay? Don't be too concerned if you get a couple of pinholes and it missed on the first coat. You can get that all on the second coat. You're going to be just fine. And listen, if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, this is awesome, I'm learning something, give this video a thumbs up, okay? YouTube loves to get that kind of interaction with you, the audience, so that we have an idea of what kind of videos you like to watch. And then it helps us with our programming, and it helps us get our message out too. And the message is simple. Anybody who owns a house can fix their own house up without having to pay for contractors. Okay? And if you're not sure how to do it, we got videos on every subject matter to help you get there. All right? That's the goal of this channel. There's just not enough people in the world anymore to provide reasonable services at a reasonable cost with decent quality. So the average homeowner is going to get left in a lurch, hiring unqualified staff. Might as well just learn how to do it yourself, gain your independence, and then that 400% value on your material costs that you put into a project, that becomes your money in your bank. Because every time you spend $1,000 renovating your house, you make $4,000 of equity. And that is money in the bank. So here, let me tell you a little story about how we picked this color. Okay? Because there's a little design tip here. When you're working with paint, you've got hundreds of options of a color that's close to this. All right, and you got what's on the fan deck, but there's also all kinds of different variations for every color in the fan deck. They don't show you every color in the fan deck. There's not every color on the wall that they can make at the paint store. There's thousands of colors. And every year they put together a different suggestion for the colors of the year based on what the market is selling. What's the colors of towels, and what are the colors in carpets and flooring, and the whole industry's got this whole color scheme working behind the scenes. All right. So what you do when you're going to pick a color is you can have a first preliminary idea, but then you've got to get the most important thing in your room, and that is your flooring. Because the flooring will determine whether you go more green or more gray or more blue or whatever. Check this out. Here's my flooring. Boom. Okay? And we're going to do the video on how to install this. This is a nice 5 mil vinyl plank with a 1 mil underpad. Very rare, okay? Good quality, comes from Europe. We're going to be doing this installation in this room in another video real soon. So if you want to learn how to install vinyl flooring properly, not just slap it in there, because it's very important to make sure all of your joints are locked properly. If you want to learn how to do that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the notifications. This video is coming soon. The easiest way to increase the value of your home. One of the lowest cost professions out there as far as the barrier to entry as far as tools are concerned. And one of the most relaxing processes. You know, a lot of people don't enjoy painting because for years they've been buying marketing and buying cheap paint. It makes a mess, it's dripping everywhere. If you buy decent paint, you don't even get any on you. And you're noticing that I'm only going about 1 width of the roller here, and that's because it takes a lot of paint to fill up texture. All right? If I try to go too much, I have to really squeeze to get that in there. And that's just a lot of work that's not necessary. By the way, when we're done this, we will be sanding again. Here, I've got lint and lint. Boom. I don't want them gone. I don't want that part of my finished look. It's gonna happen. Now you can always do what the pros suggest, and you can tape your roller sleeve and you can get rid of a little extra lint before you get going. But I've done that before in the past, and you know what I find out? Yeah, you might get a couple of pieces of lint off, but then when you're painting the room, you're still getting new pieces of lint coming off. So it's not a solution to the problem. Nothing is going to make it so that you don't have to sand. Sanding is a guarantee in the process. So don't waste your time taping your roller sleeve. It's just one more thing that's going to take time and money, and it isn't going to change the way your production works. Now, just because I don't want to have you spend all day long watching me painting a wall, I'm going to just say this. I'm going to be trimming out these windows all over the whole building. And so we're going to do a video dedicated specifically to that on the other side of the building, in the front bay windows, where we changed all the windows out. If you didn't see that, the video link will be in the description, but we don't want to film this way because the sun's back there, and it's just really hard to film. So we're going to trim these out, get this room all finished, and through the magic of YouTube, we'll see you in the next video. Cheers till next time.